Video games are becoming a universal language, in the sense that almost anyone can play some form of game and enjoy it. It's what makes them such a powerful medium for immersive storytelling, social connection, and skill development, the latter of which I'm going to be talking about today. So like I mentioned, practically anyone can access the benefits of video games, with many people spending years in one game honing their skills, but only a select few ever reach the top. Many even sacrifice their teenage years to get ahead of the curve and compete in the biggest global teams. I am, of course, talking about esports athletes. Now, we look at top players like Faker and No-Tail as these almost godlike beings who have reached a level that we wouldn't even think to strive for. But at the end of the day, they are just human, just like us. And just like us, they were also once new to the game. They too had to figure out the basics, develop the mechanical skills, learn to communicate with and work with their fellow players. So what is separating them so far from us that they're competing up there whilst we're still stuck down here? And if we have the formula, surely anyone can become an esports pro. So that leads me on to the point of this video, which is, can I crack the code, find the formula, and turn my younger sister into an esports athlete? Now, before I can try to turn anyone into an esports athlete, we first need to figure out what actually defines being an athlete. That way, we have a set of criteria that we can compare Olivia against. The most obvious thing that comes to mind when I think of being a pro is being in a team. This is obviously unachievable, especially in the time frame I have. Therefore, I'm going to focus on developing the necessary skill set she would need to prepare her for a theoretical pro-level match, rather than aiming for the textbook definition of someone who trains and competes at a pro level. When searching for a concrete definition of an esports athlete, I stumbled across the journal International Review of Sport and Exercise Psychology, in which the author explores what defined expertise in esports. Here's a small extract from the article, a definition which I believe fits my experiment well. At the core, investigations attempting to achieve the above goals have focused on the characteristics of expertise, such as perceptual cognitive skills, movement, coordination and control, and psychological characteristics. Furthermore, studies have captured the development of expertise through several analyses of training and practice histories, aka VOD reviews and game statistics. To simplify, I'm going to be training Olivia based on these criteria. Psychological or mental characteristics such as mindset, communication, self-confidence, dedication or response to feedback, mechanical control and coordination like in-game movement, ability usage, physical reaction time, and cognitive skills such as decision-making, macro knowledge, time management, and tactical positioning. I will be using video and statistical analysis to gather my data on these three criteria. Now that we have an idea of the requirements to play esports at a professional level, I need to gain an understanding of Olivia's current level of play. The game I will be training her in is Pokemon Unite, since it has a developed ranking system but is easier to understand, quicker paced, and appeals to Olivia's interest more than others of the genre. Furthermore, it's a game that I am deeply familiar with, and since I'm playing the role of coach, it's important that I have the knowledge to guide her through this.
Speaking of my coaching, I'll be trying to model my coaching style based on the industry standard. This way, there'll be less external factors which could affect her progress. The British Esports Federation's coaching code of conduct states that coaches must demonstrate honesty, integrity, competence and skill, and promote esports for fun and enjoyment, as well as performance and achievement. With this in mind, I set off on this mammoth task.
To get a baseline for Olivia's skill level, I had her play 10 matches, observing and recording her gameplay. I tried to give minimal input into what she was doing, since it was not my time to coach her yet, but since she's pretty new to the game, I wasn't going to leave her completely in the dark.
I collected my data in a few different ways. As you can see, I recorded game statistics to find trends in her performance using the online database Unite API to track her player stats. I also carried out some VOD reviews to identify her playstyle and find gaps in her tactical and game knowledge, and even got her to take a mental well-being questionnaire of my own creation to figure out her mindset and attitudes, identifying any mental barriers she might face. All these methods so far follow the way coaches and data analysts in esports teams approach evaluating player performance. Much like my role as a coach, I'm going to try to follow the industry standards as much as possible during this to get the most authentic results. The limited time, equipment, and inside knowledge of things like data analysis means what I put together won't be perfect though.
Now, to avoid overloading Olivia with detailed information about all of her habits and statistics that she probably wouldn't understand or know how to use, and to avoid doing the same to you, I processed the data, compiling all of her strengths and weaknesses into a list. I even ordered her improvements by priority level, helping me make a more targeted training plan, starting from filling the huge knowledge gaps and working my way down to the higher level stuff. If you'd like to look at my more detailed notes though, you can pause to read them. My findings were as follows. Olivia's previous experience in FPS games has equipped her with a very forward, aggressive playstyle. I got her to play a few different roles during those 10 games, but attacker is the one she excelled in the most. Due to her gaming experience, she could easily identify the information that was important to relate to her team or me, things like enemy position, scoring, and progress on objective control. She was also receptive to small amounts of real-time feedback or comms from me, which is a positive early sign, as it means she was handling the amount of information needed to juggle in a MOBA well. Whilst brute forcing things has worked well so far for her in lower level lobbies, there were many serious gaps in her knowledge and resource management that needed to be filled before she can carry on any further. Many of these flaws were revealed when I took a look at her VODs. For example, in moments of downtime during a game, I observed Olivia didn't quite know what to do with herself, and ended up wandering around the map when she should have been doing farm rotations in both the jungle and the lanes, whilst watching and holding our objective. Her having more map awareness and knowledge on positioning would be a simple fix for this. Also, I noticed Olivia didn't have a great idea of what her skills did. Whenever she got into fights, she wasn't using them tactically, basically button spamming and hoping whatever was in front of her died. She would also use cooldown on enemies that were one hit, wasting resources which could have been the difference between life or death had she engaged in another fight soon after. One other small thing that relates to the resource management is her farming wild Pokemon when her points counter was full. Smaller details like this just require more mindfulness for her to be able to maximise limited resources better. This is something that can be corrected in the moment though. Something that I didn't directly feed back to Olivia, but I'm keeping in mind during the training, is the psychological questionnaire I issued her. From my observations, and from her answers, I can tell that she isn't too confident in her abilities and struggles to keep an optimistic mindset. Having spent many years having disagreements with my sister, as all siblings do, I've come to understand how she takes criticism, and ways that I need to package feedback in a way that she can handle it and doesn't take personally. These are factors that I need to keep in mind when playing the role of her coach and performance analyst. Through my teaching, I'll try to prompt a more healthy development of these characteristics. I'm no therapist though, so I'm viewing them less so as goals and more as guidance for how I approach teaching her.
To relay this information back to Olivia, I put my feedback and a personalised training plan into a PowerPoint and presented it to her, with each of the sessions focusing on one of her weaknesses. Firstly, I set an expectation for the outcome of this, which was for her to reach at least great rank in the ranked system. This gives us a measurable goal to work towards, something that is quantitative rather than the qualitative goals I have been setting so far. My training plan consisted of 3 sessions. The introduction, where we would cover map awareness, timekeeping, and where she should be as an attacker on the map. The second session would have her applying this knowledge to her games. I'll get her to watch a video guide on her main, improving her Pokemon knowledge and hopefully having her use her skills more meaningfully. Then she'll play 5 games and I'll record the data to track her improvements. For the third, I'll repeat the format of the last session but with a different Pokemon and role, hopefully expanding her roster and getting her to play the game from a different perspective. After these 10 games, I'll look at her match data and determine my next steps. To measure how much she's improved, I'm going to use the rank system, as I've mentioned, as the main progress tracker. Olivia is currently at beginner level 5. Due to the limited time we have, my aim is to have her rank up to a great class 4, as you have to win and perform well in a number of games to get there. This bar may move up or down depending on the speed of her progress, but I believe it's reasonable for an initial benchmark. This is all I have planned for now, as I have no way of knowing how Olivia will respond to the training. Once she's completed these, I'll take from the experience and create more training sessions based on her progress. I started Olivia off with an overview of map awareness. I spoke about the different zones in the game, being the 2 lanes in the jungle, and the importance of using your time properly and positioning yourself based on the current events of the game. I didn't want to overload Olivia too much with spoken information, as I know that's not how she learns, so I showed her a few minutes of a video by Pokemon Unite climbing guides on YouTube, explaining how to play the first 3 minutes of the game effectively. I found this video to be useful as the creator modelled this using Alolan Ninetales, which is Olivia's main, so the information was presented in a context she was familiar with. At first, when delivering my presentation, I tried to take a more constructive professional stance, like that of an esports coach, but Olivia felt awkward having her sister talk to her in such a way, so I quickly changed my tone to be a little more comfortable and familiar. Navigating this was a bit difficult at first, mainly because I just didn't expect Olivia to react in that way, and it threw me off a bit, but I adjusted. There's not much to say about this session since I didn't get her to play any games, only that I saw promise. She understood the feedback I laid out for her and seemed excited to see how far she could improve. Olivia's mood and motivations are notoriously fickle though, so I was left wondering just how long this would last. So with this in mind, a week later we moved on to session 2. For this next session, I got Olivia in and started her off with a video guide on her main Ninetales. She sat and watched intently, taking in the information like I had asked, but the tone was different. The moment I called her to do the training, she was less enthused as last time, not so much unwilling, but just indifferent. For this one, I got her to do a questionnaire before and after the session, to give more psychological context to her interactions. Initially, she said she felt optimistic, relaxed, and confident in her abilities. Olivia rated the next 3 questions though as 3 stars, meaning she felt indifferent or neutral towards them. These were the ones asking about whether she felt motivated, comfortable admitting mistakes, and voicing concerns to me as her coach. I had gotten the sense beforehand that this is the way she felt, but this confirmed it for me. Once she'd watched the video, I offered to clear up anything she didn't understand before directing her to play some games and apply the knowledge she had gained. She played the first few games well, applying her new skill loadouts and positioning more effectively to push her lane. I struggled to keep her attention though, and after 3 games she got bored and said she didn't want to continue anymore. Now there's no point in the training if she isn't motivated to do it, so I wrapped up for the day. Her post-game questionnaire results were telling of what I feared would happen. She was losing interest and motivation, which is the hardest thing for me as her coach and sister to solve. These were her answers to the questions in the form. As you can see, she started off saying that she felt like she had learned something and was a better player because of the training. That itself is a huge success and shows that my training plan was working like expected. However, the general consensus for the rest of the answers was that she wasn't enjoying the game itself, with how seriously she was having to take it, and wasn't feeling motivated to continue the training. Overall, big yikes. Now, I had a brief conversation with Olivia after this, asking if she wanted to keep going with the experiment, and she said no. She just wasn't feeling it anymore. I decided to just cut my losses, as I know Olivia and I know that once she decides she doesn't want to do something, there's absolutely no way you can change her mind. Instead, I tried to figure out, where did it go wrong? At first, this confused me. I gathered a performance profile, created a personalised training schedule, approached it in the way that professional teams usually do. So what could I possibly be missing? I thought back to my coaching. Whilst I tried to follow the coaching conduct and approach it from the perspective of a professional, I think my existing relationship with Olivia was definitely a barrier to being able to fairly and impartially judge and guide her progress. From the first session, I went in guns blazing and ready to take on that role, only for it to be received with an awkward, closed-off attitude, and so I had to adapt. But in doing so, I lost the ability to be assertive and command her attention in the right places. I think this is a flaw of my own personality. For me to be the assertive leader type personality which this task demanded of me, I needed to go all in and fully take on that persona. So shifting tones on a whim to be more humorous and mellow to make Olivia more comfortable meant I couldn't mix that with the firmness that was needed as her coach. This tone from the first session then carried on into the next session. I was wary of Olivia's lower mood as well as how she responded to a coaching personality the week before, and so I toned it down. But in doing that, I think the session lost a lot of its learning value. Olivia herself reported that she thought I directed the session in a way that made sense to her, but she didn't feel encouraged or supported by me. In my own reflections, I can't help but agree that one of the key factors in what you could call the failure of this experiment was my poor coaching ability. A coach's role is to equip their players with not only mechanical skills and knowledge, but with the mental skills to deal with the pressure to perform. According to a paper by Luis Mello in the Systematic Scientific Journal, the coach-athlete relationship plays a fundamental role in shaping young athletes' experiences and outcomes. Studies indicate that relationships characterized by trust, empathy, and open communication are associated with higher motivation, greater persistence, and enhanced well-being. Furthermore, an article on the site I Coach Kids, which is very on the nose, states that developing confidence and most importantly connection with the athlete to create a sense of belonging and emotional safety fosters deeper engagement and motivation. In short, whilst we only did a couple of sessions, our pre-established relationship as siblings affecting the dynamic, combined with my lack of coaching ability or experience, meant I failed to create the right environment to motivate Olivia to train hard and improve. So the first thing that affected the success of this was my coaching ability, but I think there are still other factors at play here. The second thing that I believe greatly affected how this experiment went, something I had almost no power over, was Olivia's mental skills. Now, I briefly spoke about this at the start of the video when I went over what defines an esports athlete, but having the right mindset and motivations is one of, if not the most important, factor when training to be an athlete. An increasing amount of studies are showing that success in esports depends on more than just mechanical skills, with more emphasis on sports psychology within the industry than ever. Mental toughness is one of the many cognitive skills required, describing an athlete's ability to maintain performance levels with sustained confidence, focus, and commitment under pressure. This and other skills are associated with sustained motivation, lower burnout risk, and long-term well-being. Now, it may seem harsh, but based on my experience trying to coach Olivia, I just don't think she's equipped with the right psychological skills to take her through the process of becoming an esports athlete. I set the bar for her performance low, not expecting her to be able to improve mechanically within the time frame we had, but it turns out actually being good at the game wasn't going to be the issue. To be able to play the same game for hours a day, constantly facing your own mistakes and picking apart your successes to look for even more ways to improve. This takes more than just a love for the game and physical skill. It takes dedication, sacrificing not only your time, but what once was your hobby to literally turn it into your livelihood. You sacrifice your entire perspective on the game in favour of a career built on passion and the constant drive to improve. You completely give up the leisure that came with playing that specific game, now having to play it even when you don't feel like it. That alone is a difficult thing for anyone to do, regardless of all the other mental pressures that come with being in the public eye as an athlete whose value now becomes tied solely to their performance. When I asked Olivia to be my subject for this experiment, I didn't anticipate that her mindset would be the main barrier to her success. I definitely didn't expect her to straight up not want to do it anymore. Whilst it was frustrating that something so out of my control halted our progress, the unexpected outcome gave me a more valuable insight into what it takes to become an esports athlete than perhaps any other outcome could have. There's a lot to be learned in failure. Whilst it's not as satisfying as getting everything right, it gives you a lot to reflect on, which, in my opinion, is much more valuable. It prompts you to think about what you could have done better. What could I have done better as a coach? I don't have a perfect answer for that, but I think it lies in what kind of person I am and how, with very fluctuating levels of self-confidence, I struggled to stay assertive and take the lead of situations. Then, could I have structured my training better, or even created a more extensive psychological screening test, almost like a PARQ? I think this definitely would have alerted me sooner to Olivia's mindset and lack of focus or mental resilience, but it likely wouldn't have changed the outcome. There's also the question of, would she even be honest in those answers? Her responses to the questions I did give her were frustratingly neutral at times, and her personality altogether is very guarded, with an aversion to vulnerability or any kind of show of feelings. And so, going back to my question at the start of all of this, no, not just anyone can follow the path all the way to becoming an esports athlete. Many try, but their passion wanes and they lose focus of what they really want in all the frustration of not improving quickly enough. This is not to say that you have to be built different to do it. Unlike traditional sports where physical prowess is often a gift of birth, cognitive skills can always be learned. You can practice resilience, self-confidence, and stress coping until they become second nature, but this relies on the motivation of the players themselves and their system of support, which includes not only their coaches, but family, friends, psychologists, and their team members. So when you look at the successes of the top esports players, that's not just a display of ridiculously elite skills, but a testament to their mental resilience too. In Olivia's case, she didn't start off with the intention of becoming an athlete. That's not her passion, not what drives her. So of course, she isn't going to apply herself as eagerly as someone with those aspirations would. Unfortunately though, that's just the nature of the experiment. In theory, this process seemed easy. Just analyse Olivia's current skill level, put together a training plan, do it, and everything will fall into place. See where it takes me. I would have made an esports athlete. Obviously, as I have extensively talked about for the past 15 or so minutes, that wasn't the case. So I'll leave you with this one thing. As long as you have the intention, the resilience, the passion, the key is to make it.
The key is to make it.